The dust clung to her shoes like it didn't want her to leave. Every step down the dirt road felt heavier than the last, as if the earth itself knew she had nothing left to give. Clara wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, though it did little against the sharp evening wind. In her palm, hidden beneath trembling fingers, lay the last piece of her past, a small gold ring, scratched with time, but still shining stubbornly in the fading light. It was her mother's, it was her promise, and tonight it was her only chance to survive. The ranch town buzzed with the sounds of closing shutters and tired laughter. Workers finished their long days, boots stomping dust, voices low and satisfied. Clara stood at the edge of the general store porch, watching a family walk out with sacks of flour and fresh bread. The smell nearly buckled her knees. Hunger wasn't just pain anymore. It was a voice inside her head, whispering, begging, screaming. She swallowed hard and stepped forward. Inside the store, lantern light flickered against wooden shelves. The shopkeeper barely looked up. "We're closing," he muttered. "I don't need much," Clara said, her voice fragile but steady. She placed the ring on the counter. It made a small, clear sound, the sound of surrender. Just enough food for a few days. The man's eyes lifted slowly, landing on the ring. For a moment, greed flashed there. He picked it up, turning it in the light. "This is worth more than a few days," he said. "Then give me what it's worth," she whispered. Before the shopkeeper could answer, the door swung open. Cold air rushed in, along with a tall young man carrying the scent of horses and open fields. His boots were polished with use, not vanity. His jacket bore the emblem of the largest ranch in the county. Everyone knew that mark. He paused when he saw the ring on the counter, and Clara beside it. There was something about her posture. The pride struggling. To stand tall against desperation. That stopped him cold. "What's this?" he asked. "None of your business," the shopkeeper replied quickly, already closing his fingers around the ring. The young man's gaze sharpened. "Looks like a trade." Clara didn't look at him. She stared at the counter as if eye contact would shatter her completely. "It's fine," she murmured. "I'm selling it." The young man stepped closer. The lantern light revealed a softness in his expression that didn't match the rough edges of ranch life. He gently took the ring from the shopkeeper's hand and placed it back in Clara's palm. His touch was warm, steady. "Gold isn't what we need," he said quietly. She blinked, confused, finally meeting his eyes. "You are." The words hung in the air, strange and impossible. He turned to the shopkeeper. "Put her tab on my family's account, and add a week's worth." The shopkeeper didn't argue. Clara's breath caught. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity," he replied. "It's an offer." He gestured toward the dark horizon, where the ranch lights flickered like distant stars. "We need help. My mother's been sick. The house, the ranch, everything's falling behind. We need someone strong enough to hold things together." His gaze returned to her hands, still clenched around the ring. "You look like someone who refuses to break." The words cracked something inside her. She'd been breaking for months, quietly, alone, but somehow in his voice, she heard belief, the kind she hadn't felt since her mother died. "And in return?" she asked. "In return," he said, "you eat. You sleep under a roof, and you keep that ring." Silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind carried the distant sound of horses. A life she'd never imagined stood open. Before her like a door she was terrified to walk through. Finally, Clara closed her fingers around the ring and nodded. That night, she rode toward the ranch with a stranger who spoke gently and drove carefully, as if afraid sudden movement might scare her away. She didn't know his name yet. She didn't know her future. But for the first time in weeks, hunger wasn't the loudest voice in her mind. Hope was. The ranch was bigger than Clara expected. A sprawling kingdom of fences, barns and wide skies. Dawn painted the land in gold, and for a moment, she felt like she had stepped into a dream that didn't belong to her. The young man introduced himself as Daniel as he helped her down from the wagon. "Welcome home," he said casually. The word struck her chest like a heartbeat she didn't recognize. Inside the house, warmth wrapped around her instantly. The scent of stew simmering and fresh bread baking filled the air. A frail woman sat near the fireplace. wrapped in blankets, her eyes bright despite her pale face. "This must be Clara," the woman said with a smile. "The girl my son rescued from starvation." Daniel groaned. "Mother." But Clara laughed, a small surprise sound that felt foreign on her lips. The older woman held out her hand, and Clara took it. Her grip was gentle, grateful. "Anyone who walks through that door hungry," the woman said softly, "is family." Those words rooted deep inside Clara. The days that followed were hard, but they were honest. Clara woke before sunrise, fed animals, cooked meals, cleaned rooms, and learned the rhythm of ranch life. Her hands blistered, her muscles ached, but every meal she ate felt like victory. Every night she slept under that roof felt like mercy. And Daniel, he watched her with quiet admiration. He never treated her like a servant. He worked beside her, joked with her, asked her opinions. Slowly, the distance she carried in her shoulders began to melt. She told him stories about her mother. He told her about growing up chasing cattle under endless skies. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Clara found Daniel sitting alone on the fence, staring into the fields. "You saved this place," he said when she approached. She shook her head. "You saved me," he smiled. Faintly, "Maybe we saved each other." The truth of it settled between them. But peace is fragile. And one morning, a banker arrived with papers that threatened to rip everything apart. The ranch was drowning in debt. Daniel's father had hidden the truth before his death. They had weeks before foreclosure. Clara watched Daniel crumble under the weight of it. For the first time since she met him, she saw fear in his eyes. That night, she held her ring again. It glowed in the candlelight, a piece of her past whispering promises of survival. She walked to Daniel and placed it in his hand. "This can help," she said. He shook his head instantly. "No, you told me gold isn't what you needed," she reminded him softly. "You said you needed me." She stepped closer. "Well, this is me, all of me, and I'm not letting this ranch fall. Not after it gave me a life." Tears filled his eyes. He closed her fingers back around the ring. "We'll find another way," he said. "Together." And they did. The town rallied behind them. Ranch hands, shopkeepers, families Clara had come to know. They organized auctions, worked extra shifts, sold cattle, and rebuilt trust. Clara became the heart of that effort, speaking with a fire that inspired everyone who heard her. Weeks later, when the final payment was made, the ranch stood stronger than ever. And Clara stood on the porch, the ring still on her finger, Daniel beside her. "You never traded it," he whispered. She smiled. "No, I invested it." He laughed, then took her hand. "You were never meant to trade gold for food," he said. "You were meant to trade fear for a future." The wind carried laughter from the fields. The house behind them glowed warm and alive. And Clara realized something profound. She hadn't lost her past. She had built a home from it.